Hello. This is my second video of today. I'm kind of making up for my 2-week absence. I'm really sorry about that again. The book that we're going to be going over right now is called Life with the Esquimaux, the narrative of Captain Charles Francis Hall of the Whaling Bark. And it's published by Forgotten Books, which I think is a little bit odd because if it was forgotten, you wouldn't be publishing it, you know? But, I don't know. It's very nice cover there. Hall, I'll talk about Hall in a minute, but it's basically got the same font as Voyage in the Arctic Seas, and it's also got something cool that I like. The chapters are Roman numerals. I've always liked that. It's not how I did it in my book, but I always liked that. Anyway, Charles Francis Hall is a really interesting guy. He's born in New York, I think, and he lives there most of his life. But he later on decides that he's going to become a mariner. So he does, and he leads the... Well, actually, this is later on because, well, he leads an expedition to the Arctic, essentially, and he's looking for John Franklin. And this is the 1860s, so, you'd think, since John Franklin left in 1845 and none of them have ever been seen again, and like 50 expeditions have gone through by this point, that they'd all be dead. But Hall, being the genius that he is, doesn't think that. He thinks that Franklin and his men are still alive, or at least some of Franklin's men are still alive, and he genuinely expects to find some of them. So there's something a little bit weird in this guy's head, but personally, I think he was a good person. He goes and he interviews all of these men. One of the men that he interviews, an Inuit man, is called Cochlear Argnoon, and I'm sorry if I butchered that. Basically, the black men encounter we get from Hall's writing from this book. The black man encounter was essentially, so Cochlear Argnoon is going hunting, right? And he sees HMS Terror, and he climbs aboard, and he's met with these men these black men. And I think the modern theory for that is that they were wearing balaclavas or something, or face paint or whatever, and they're having some sort of party. But they terrify him because he's never seen a black man before. He's barely even seen white people before. So he goes downstairs, and who we assume is Crozier, gives him gifts and tells him, he points to a tent outside of the ship on the shore and tells him never go there because there are evil people there, presumably like mutineers or something. I personally think Crozier was lying, but that's another thing. Anyway, so he goes home and he brings Crozier's gifts back with him, and some of those gifts were utensils, iron utensils, that on the side have FRMC, Francis Rod and Moira Crozier, and he gives those to Hall. So the proof, I think it's a very accurate story because he gives literally the proof that it happened. Anyway, that's just one thing that happened on this expedition. The book goes into that a lot, and essentially he draws a lot of stuff. He's very friendly to the natives. He's a good guy. He's a very good guy. I think this argument that the natives were not, that the Europeans and the natives, especially in the Arctic, were not friendly is kind of a lie. They were really pretty amicable and traded a lot. They helped. I think colonization in the Arctic was a lot less than it was on the mainland because there's not much to colonize. So the natives, even today, kind of kept their status as the preeminent people in Nunavut or whatever. So it really wasn't as bad as down south, and they kept a very cordial relationship. So anyway, Hall goes among the natives, and he interviews all of them, and he's talking about, like, where is Franklin and everything. And obviously they're all dead, so they kind of point Hall in the direction of where they last saw some, and they discover Hall's boat place. And Hall's boat place is a lot bigger than McClintock's boat place, which only had 2 people in it. There are maybe 13 or 14 people at Hall's boat place. Obviously, they're all dead, and that is where today we found James Fitzjames and John Gregory. They were much later identified. And it seems to have been some sort of sick camp or hospital camp or dump for the sick because they were all in one place and there weren't any other bodies anywhere else. So they seem to have just sat down to die, sadly. Yeah. So anyway, continuing the biography of Hall, Hall goes on the first commissioned Arctic expedition for the United States. It's called the Polaris expedition because the ship is called the Polaris. And while they're stuck in the ice because Hall wants to continue, he is actually probably poisoned by his doctor, who is a Norwegian or a Swede, I think, something like that in Scandinavia, or maybe a German. And it is a big scandal, but there's no proof that the guy did it, so he kind of got off for free, even though it was later discovered that he had a very large abnormal amount of arsenic in his body, which is very indicative of poisoning. And Hall, as he was dying, was saying, he poisoned me, like referring to the doctor. Anyway, I think Hall. This book is great because it includes a lot of drawings, unlike McClintock's. I like drawings, even though it's kind of a children's thing. Hall's a better writer just because he's a little bit more crazy than McClintock. Hall was not a professional Navy man. He was a mariner. He was a very experienced mariner for certain. But McClintock was of the Navy. Like, he was a very strict, not a very funny guy. He was very serious all the time. So I think Hall's book is a lot more entertaining, even if it doesn't have as much information as the OG book by McClintock does. So anyway, those are just my thoughts on life with the Eskimo. Hall spends a lot of time with them. He learns some of the language. He has a little bit of dictionary in the book for the language, and he brings these accounts back to the U.S. and they circulate for Britain and Europe and everything. And it kind of alleviates the pressure on the natives a little bit, because before this, a lot of people had assumed that the natives had killed the British because they killed Captain Cook and they did a lot of that stuff in the Pacific. But Pacific natives and Inuit natives are very, very different. Anyway, I would absolutely recommend you buy this book. I got it at Half Price Books. It's a fantastic rendition of an Arctic story that I used to help write my own book. Thank you. Good night.